So I recently sat down with Denholm Spurr, one of the stars from the new web series, The Grass is Always Grindr, and I was kind of expecting to have a superficial conversation about the show or the portrayal of LGBT people in the media, but Denholm opened up in a really powerful, profound, authentic, and yet insightful way. He talked about his experience of being homeless. He talked about his experience of drugs. And we both had kind of a conversation about how do we bring a sense of belonging back to the LGBT community. And it was just an amazing conversation. And I was so glad I had the chance to speak with him. So without any further ado, let's just jump in. Hey everyone, I'm here with the amazingly talented Denholm Spurr from... Oh, sorry. So I messed it. Did my American accent screw up your British name?
You did, sadly.
Oh, so let's for those of us who are uncouth savages from the New World, how do I pronounce your name properly?
Denholm.
So
yeah,
it's like
you don't
jeans.
pronounce the H or the L. Well, that's denim, technically. The U sound.
I'm from the Midwest, so you say Denholm.
Denholm. Yeah, that's fine. That's my name. So you can...
Denholm Hotspur or just Spur?
Denholm Spur, yeah.
Okay.
I wish it was Hotspur, but sadly it's just Spur.
And you are on the amazingly successful web series on YouTube called The Grass is Always Grindr.
That's right.
But some of you who might be theater aficionados might know him from the HIV Monologues, the Chem Sex Monologues.
Yeah. Kathy Come Home at the Barbican. That was a big show. Yeah, there's lots of gay shows, though.
I was going to say, and I think my readers or my listeners probably know which way you swing. Hence the whole purpose of the podcast. But I've gotten into it. The first question I had was, why did 56 Dean Street decide to get into creating content? Why would a sexual health clinic say, we need to create a mini-series or a web series about gay men in London?
So, I mean, there's only so much of this that I know, but having worked with 56 Street for quite a while now, and also I'm really good friends with the person that established their digital content kind of...
Who's that?
A guy called Chris Goddard, who worked at 9010. He now doesn't work there, but 9010 is the kind of media agency that operates 56 Street. And 56 Street and 9010 had this chat, so they wanted to make some digital content that would help dovetail with their Prime project, which was the project to reduce HIV infections in London. And so they devised this mini web series at that point. This is before The Grass is Always Grindr. There was a mini web series called Joe's Story, which was 6 episodes, each which looked at a different way of dealing with avoiding HIV, basically. So it was like using condoms, taking a break from sex.
Nobody's doing that.
No. But then
we
also...
know which episode got the lowest views.
Using PrEP and treating yourself well and dealing with Chem Sex. And it was basically kind of looked at all of those kind of different angles. And that was... So we kind of put that together, and that was also surprisingly quite successful. I mean, I think now it's got about 60,000 views in total, which is obviously dwarfed by the web series. But at the time, that was really, really, really amazing. The whole Prime project was super successful because it brought HIV infections in London down by 80% or something mad.
And that was by educating people via web series or YouTube and things like that?
Yeah. Plus, not just, so there was also a website. So there was the YouTube web series, the Joe Story mini web series that they did. And then there was the website, which had also other content. So there was a video, it was divided in the same way into the 6 different ways in which you can help get HIV. On each one, there was the video of me and a big picture of me. My huge face all over it. And then there was other things like articles on people, doctors, and if you were on the Prime project, if you were signed up to the Prime project, you would be sent month by month each one of these things as a way to kind of help people at high risk.
And you were an ambassador for the Prime project?
Yes.
Okay. And so that's what they basically sent you material and you shared it on social media?
So the script was written by Patrick, who also wrote the Chem Sex Monologues and HIV Monologues. Pat Cash. Then together with 9010 Chris Goddard, we kind of just in one day in the base of Cuba filmed this mini web series, which was basically just me being interviewed as if I was coming to the clinic or once every month.
Oh, okay.
It's really basic, but actually quite funny, informative, and a bit sexy.
Really?
Yeah.
At the basement of Q Club. All right.
Just I think appealing. What Chris wanted to do was to make something that was just like sold sex a little bit in terms of sexual health in a sexier way than often it's shown.
And how did that get translated into The Grass is Always Grindr?
So then, obviously, we did quite well at the mini websites. It won not only with the views, but it won like 5 medical communications awards.
Oh right, excellent.
Which was fantastic. And off the back of that, they were like, okay, we want to. And we always kind of thought we wanted to be a bit more braver with it, I think. And so Pat was like, cool, I want to take this to the next level. So he kind of took control of the project, shall we say, through his company, which is called Dragonflies, and developed the script into a 3-part web series.
Yes.
Which was called The Grass is Always Grindr. And the aim of that was to not just look at how you can prevent HIV, but also go deeper and look at the community and look at sexual health in a kind of like in terms of stigma and all those other aspects of HIV, and also the wider community of chem sex use, and put people in it, so that also people that maybe that don't necessarily wouldn't be signed up to the Prime Project, because in order to get the Prime Project, you had to be high risk. So this one was to reach those people, but also to reach a wider range of people who might need to be educated, who might not be high risk right now, but could be in the future, to stop them from getting HIV, or to stop them from causing harm to somebody else who might have it or end up getting it through stigma or anything else.
What was the reaction to the first series?
So we were kind of hopeful, I think, that we might get, I mean, the best case scenario would be 50,000 views across the season. And we were like, that would be great, because that would, at the time, that would have beaten what Joe's story was by about 100%. And so that would have been an excellent result. And somehow it just kind of exploded. And people clearly were really, really engaged with it and really loved it. And
it's got 500,000 views now.
Yeah, well, the first episode has over 500,000 views. In total, it's kind of edging closer and closer towards 1 million in total. It's over 3/4 already, so it's kind of going in that direction.
And tell us, for those who haven't seen the web series yet, tell us about Joe, your character.
Oh, what a beaut.
Vapid.
I've played him for so long now. It's so,
you have?
Yeah, because it's the same character that was in the very first thing. So
I didn't get that. Okay, we didn't. I wasn't clear on that. Okay, so how long? So when did you film the first 6-part series?
That was 2015.
Okay.
15, I think it was 2015 or 16. I can't, that's so long ago, I can't quite remember when it was.
Okay.
But, so we
You're
filmed...
not that old.
Yeah. So, yeah, we filmed that, and that was him kind of coming to London for the first time. And
oh, right. And where's he from?
Somewhere in the provinces was the kind of idea. Not like... It's not northern, he's not like up there, but he's somewhere like probably home counties, but not really been to London much, deep enough in the home counties for it to be kind of like,
okay,
I'm going to go to Croydon rather than go to London.
What do you like Joe? Do you identify with him? Do you think he represents a certain section of gay London?
Yes, I mean, if you're kind of a young white...
Should we tell the characters, I mean, real quick, just for, can you give us a real brief summary for those who haven't seen it at all? Like,
of what the Grass is Always Grindr is?
Or Joe, yeah.
So Joe is a young, white, emerging Insta-famous guy who is kind of like grinding his way through London, but really craving intimacy. That's his kind of remit, I would say. And in the first series, the mini-series, he has literally just arrived. He's kind of like downloaded Grindr and is just like, I think getting HIV is probably inevitable, but I'm just going to have fun until that happens.
Really? Did they? Because I didn't get that from the first episode.
So that's not that of Joe's story. It's just endlessly confusing.
Oh.
The mini 6...
Oh, okay, okay.
That is what's happening, is he's really young and naive, and that's the journey. I mean, then the next episode is he has now got some kind of Insta following, and is craving intimacy massively, and has probably just had a lot of meaningless sex at this point, and this is kind of like, I just want something a bit more serious, but is not able, is afraid to put that out into the world. I think is that he just knows he's able to capitalize on his sexual self, but doesn't see his kind of true kind of non-sexual self as being worth anything.
Okay. And do you think that speaks for a lot of gay men in
I
London?
think so. I think that people I think partly it's to do with Grindr, to be honest, is that when people download Grindr, within a minute you're offered sex, within 2 minutes you're offered drugs, and within 3 minutes you're offered money. And that because so many of our generation lived in the kind of period of Section 21, 21 is the homelessness one. I get so confused. Section 28, which was the against the...
so for American listeners, that was a law passed by Margaret Thatcher that banned anything...
The education of homosexual relations, basically.
So it couldn't be in schools?
No, in schools. And yeah, exactly. Although that was repealed in the early 2000s, it still took a long while for that to kind of really set. And even now, there are schools which really struggle with it. You look, right, it's happening in the news, right? The schools in Birmingham, which are saying, I don't want education, LGBT education in our schools. So we're not past that, the effects of having Section 28 on our country. And so many people of my generation that lived through that, the only resources you had to kind of, for education, really, because there wasn't really the same representation on TV and things like that. I mean, Queer as Folk was the only thing that really ever did that, was Grindr or porn. And so when that becomes the basis of your understanding of your sexuality, I think that can lead you down the path of being like, well, these things are what it means to be a gay man. And then you don't realise there's so much more of what it means to be a gay man. And actually, all those things maybe are a part of being a gay man, but don't have to define you. And so I think Joe is in that kind of midst.
And in season 2, he's kind of getting into Chem Sex.
So he does have Chem. I don't know how much of it. Maybe I guess you've seen it all. But in season 1, he does have Chem Sex once.
He does. Yeah, it was very tastefully.
It's very tastefully done.
Sometimes I'm like, are they going to go that far? And they just cut to the end, and I'm like, okay. I was like,
that was
show that on
YouTube.
YouTube.
Season 2 was just boom. It's all out there.
And you also did the Chem Sex Monologues. I mean, that's a relatively new phenomenon. At least, I mean, when I talk to older gay people, they're saying that wasn't around in the 80s and 90s.
It's interesting because I speak to some older people that say that it was, but it was just in a much smaller. The combination of drugs and sex has always existed. You know, Egyptians did it, so it existed, but it was just a much smaller community. Whereas somehow that community in the late noughties and early 2010s has kind of gone ballooned, and now you'd be hard pushed to find a gay man that's not tried it.
And why do you think that is? Because it's definitely... What I sometimes ask myself is if, by all accounts, if you're in the West, you know, gay rights are moving forward. You know, gay marriage is legal in the UK, the US, Canada. There are more anti-discrimination laws. So in theory, things are getting better.
Yes.
But it seems like sometimes a certain segment of the population feels like they're getting worse.
Yes, I think there's so many... It's difficult to put a kind of like, this is why it's happening kind of thing. But I think there are many factors that have kind of created the environment to which makes this phenomenon as big as it is. And I think that comes in several ways. The first way, I think, is living in the aftermath of the AIDS crisis. I think that's a big part of it, is that for so long, sex was such a kind of fearful thing for gay men that taking drugs eradicates the fear. And although, in general speaking, the fear of HIV is so much more diminished now, it doesn't stop it from feeling not that way. And also, you don't want to get HIV, right? No one wants to get HIV. So the whole, if you want to have enjoyable sex and not have HIV, the whole kind of like drugs thing, I think, is somehow mixed in with that. I think it's also to do with Section 28 and the lack of education. I think that's got a lot to do with it. And also the kind of craving for intimacy that seems to be lacking in the gay, in some sectors of the gay community. Intimacy and even kind of community is lacking, I think.
I didn't see the Chem Sex Monologues. I've seen there have been a number of plays on that kind of topic, and they touch on that exact same theme, that it's almost as if, this is my theory, that because we now use apps so much more, we're not hanging out at the gay bar like we would have done 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So a sense of community, and I mean, I always feel like I'm 80 years old, like wagging my finger at my grandson, like, back in my day, you had to go to the bar. You had to chat somebody up, not send them your junk pic. But it's almost like, so we lost a sense of community by not hanging out in queer spaces.
That's true.
And then we're substituting that with drugs, which I don't want to get on a soapbox. I don't know if that's the best way to get community.
No, I don't think it has to be necessarily a bad way. Like, from my past of I did have that period of my life where I got quite lost in sex and drugs, and there are some people that I know through that period of my life that are lifelong friends and people that I think are beautiful people. So I don't think necessarily that it has to be all viewed in this kind of negative thing. But really for me at that time when I came out, it was all kind of a big kind of mess, really. I ended up being homeless, which was also a disaster.
Why? Did you remind me what happened?
Well, my relationship with my family broke down, basically, and I wasn't able to go home.
So your parents didn't take it well?
Not particularly. It was, but neither did I. And that's the thing that's important. I always think it's important to remember.
What do you mean neither did you?
For me, I grew up thinking that being gay was probably the worst thing I could be. And I then came out and was like, God, I'm the worst thing I could possibly be. And it destroyed my view of my future, which was to have a wife and children and a job. And, everything kind of just crumbled. I was on a success trajectory before then. I was like top of my class at drama school, university, just catapulting to success. And then came out as gay and it all kind of crumbled. And my relationship with my family crumbled and everything kind of at the same time went kavoom. And so I became homeless, and then the kind of chem sex scene, in a way, sometimes was an antidote to that, and other times was...
Antidote to what? The feelings of loneliness?
Yeah, absolutely. But was sometimes like somewhere to stay. I mean, if you can stay at this party for 4 days, that's somewhere that you can stay without having to worry.
Wow, that's really intense.
So yeah, it was quite intense, to be honest. I look back on that period and think, God, that's kind of mad. And I've also spoken to BuzzFeed about the fact that I slept in saunas as well at times, and sometimes I slept or turn on Grindr and just be like sleep around someone's house just because it's someone to stay. Like in the worst period of my homelessness, that was what I was doing. So it was a weird period.
How would you go to a Grindr hookup's house and say, "Can I spend the night?" Or would they? Would you secretly hope that they?
It would depend, probably on how good looking I thought they were, which is really shallow.
So wait, let me get this straight. You were homeless, but if the guy was ugly, like, I'll take the street. Like,
no, that's not what I'm saying. No, what I'm saying is that it depended on what position of power I felt that I had in the relationship. It's how upfront I was about needing someone to stay. And I think that's
heavy.
That's unfortunately the basis of what I was able to do. If I felt that they were better looking than me, I would probably just hope that they let me stay. And if I felt that I was better looking than them, I would just be like, well, I'm only staying I'm only coming over if you can give me somewhere to stay for the night.
Did you explain why, or I guess you just probably dismissed it as like, oh, I don't want to be taking a night bus anywhere?
I didn't even really view myself as homeless at the time. I wouldn't have. If someone said, "Are you homeless?" I would have said no, because I didn't.
So I mean, were you couch surfing, as we say in the States?
Well, that's essentially what it is, but that is homelessness,
Yes, okay.
I didn't have anywhere to go home to. My life was on my back. But I remember, I tell this story quite often, but I was on the tube, and a guy gets on with, matted hair, and he's holding a cup, and he looks so unhealthy. And he's saying, "Oh, I need some money for a hostel." And it was that point that I remember looking and being like, gosh, we are exactly the same. The only difference is that I speak the way that I speak and I look the way that I look, and therefore people want to help me, which is ridiculous that people want to help me, and unfortunately they don't want to help you. And that's what saved me really from the streets life, is I had other options that I was able to.
And what were those options? You mean
other sacrifices, right? Sleeping with people often for money, for somewhere to stay. That was an option, a sacrifice that in my worldview I was able to make, and other people were not, or either were not or could not make that sacrifice.
Can I ask, how did you, from my perspective, you literally just said 2 minutes ago, being gay is the worst thing I could be.
That was how I felt.
And then a couple minutes later, you're like, yeah, I was doing whatever I needed to do to have a roof over my head.
Because I already felt negative about myself.
How did? Right? Oh, okay. So I was going to say, how did that impact?
And I think that it's really important to emphasise that I really do not think that sex work should be viewed in that way. Is that it should not be that the last ditch thing, or that the people that are doing it are kind of somehow lost. Because I know many sex workers that own it. at that time in my life, I was not owning it. I was last ditch. I will do what I must to survive. It was survival at that point. So yeah, that's what it was really for me.
And what made you change, or how did you get? You sound like you were into acting and then fell out and go.
So in many ways, acting was the light at the end of the tunnel that kept me going. I was good. I knew I was good at it. You know, it was one thing I knew I was good at, and that I had potential. And who knows what my career would be if that period of my life had not happened? Because unfortunately, it's also a very judgmental industry, and those things that happen in my life sometimes work against me. But that was kind of the thing that kept me going. And then finding community within the gay community, within the gay world. Pat Cash ran this night called Let's Talk About Gay Sex and Drugs, which was also in the basement of Q-Bar. And that was a way to people that were doing drugs and having sex and being gay to come together and talk about those experiences. And all of a sudden, people didn't feel alone. And for me, that was the first time I was able to get up on the stage and talk about my experience. And often it was done in a kind of creative, people would get up there and do poetry or do songs or do whatever. And it was a really, really fantastic night that just enabled me to connect with my community, which was what I needed when I first came out, is for someone to wave the flag to see community here, come find me. When what the flag that was waving was the Grindr one, which actually...
What do you mean the first web series, or you mean like
Grindr, no, as in like the app was that when you're coming out as gay, what do you think of? If the only thing you know that's gay, probably before you come out, is Grindr, so you turn to it to tell you about what it means to be a gay man. Whereas what I needed was something else to say, this is what being a gay man can be. That is a part of it. Don't reject that. But there are other options as well.
How can gay men or men who have sex with men find that sense of community? I mean, that's a big element of both my book and my podcast, is trying to point out. Yeah. You know, it was the gay bar. That's where we all did. Yeah. And then that wasn't it. And then it was like, now what? Yeah. So what would you say to other, because not everyone can be
it's tricky.
Handsome blonde actor.
No, totally. And I realise my privilege on that is that actually there's a hell of a lot of things that I'm very lucky that I think that in different circumstances I very easily could not have got my life back together. You know, I'm very fortunate. But it's hard. That is a real problem in the community, I think, still, of welcoming newbies. Is how do we get them in? And it's getting better because people are feeling less internalized homophobia coming out, because people are feeling more accepted. And you see it particularly in the younger generation, when people just do not care about sexuality at all. There's no negativity there. It's like, you be gay. Is that maybe I'm gay today, maybe I'm not. And that's great, I think. So,
but what can people do to find community? Or you could, I mean, maybe that's too broad. What would you recommend for people in your situation to do to find a sense of community?
I think you have to go and join something that, try and find a group of people, whoever it is, who have shared experiences in a non-sexual environment. That, I think, is the best thing. Like, if you like, find something you like. You like swimming, you like board games, you like dancing, whatever it is, find you like, and there will probably be a group of gay men that do that together. Yeah. Use the Meetup app and go and find those people. That is the beginnings of finding community in a world where sex is kind of appears to be dominant. Yeah.
I mean, I guess my fear of that is my theory on Grindr is it's not just the app itself. I feel like it's a bunch of things happening together. I think it was Grindr, Instagram, and other social media combined with, I even say Amazon, because you can just press a button and something will be on your door the next day. So that kind of creates a passive mentality where everything will come to me. And I wonder if people struggle to go out and find something. I mean, that's nothing. If they don't want to find it, we can't do anything about that. But
I think you're right there.
You know, I'm struggling. What can I do to find more things like this so I can showcase that? Yeah. But I fear the apps kind of might create such a passive mentality that people don't actively try to go out there and find a sense of community, and then you've got a certain segment who might just kind of get into a certain cycle or spiral.
And I've definitely spoken to friends who are in that burgeoning gay phase, who I have exactly that conversation with who I tell them, well, go and do this, go and what do you, and they'll be like, maybe I know they like tennis. It's like, cool, go play with the gay men's tennis club or whatever, you know. And they're like, oh yeah, but I could do, but and I'm just like, you could do. So
why don't you sit on the couch and play Grindr?
Yeah, exactly.
Or swipe on Tinder or something.
Yeah.
So is Grass is Always Grindr has had its second season? Is there talk of a
currently
third?
In its second
Or is, how many
season.
now?
So 2 episodes of season 2. There are 10 episodes of season 2. How amazing!
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay. So we're just getting started.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So is there? It sounds like if it's massively successful, is there going to be a season?
I mean, hopefully. I mean, Public Health England jumped on board in this season, which is fantastic. And providing this season does well, last season was such a phenomenon. We're hoping this season could do as well. If it does, then maybe there is a season 3. I mean, I'd like to see it explore particularly kind of minority issues. I really would love it in the gay community. I mean, it at the moment so
the other
far,
main character is black.
Yes, but that's still a very kind of one-dimensional view of the minority of community, because it's someone that isn't really part of the community. He is a straight man and enters the gay community and is out of the scene, so to speak, which obviously is an important storyline to tell. But there's a whole host of people within the gay BME gay people in the community that's their story is not being told. And
do you know? And I get that you're the actor, you weren't the kind of the writer or the producer necessarily. But what was the thought process behind that? Because one could easily say that's a stereotype of, we would say in America, like the DL brother, like the guy who's like on the down low who sleeps with men. It's like, oh, I'm not gay. I've never been tested for an STD before.
I think it was exactly that, which is why that was chosen. Was
that because that community wasn't getting reached?
Yes, and because they're high risk. That community is high risk, and I mean, the entire minority community is high risk, but that community particularly is high risk, and I think probably because it also appeals to people's viewing pleasure.
Okay.
I mean,
what do you mean?
As in, like people.
He's a muscular boxer.
Yeah, Mark's a muscular boxer, you know, and I'm kind of young-looking blonde guy. That kind of is probably quite high on the Pornhub searches. Let's be honest. I think that there was probably did come into the equation.
Can you give us a sneak or what themes are going to be explored later on this season and season 2?
I mean, Chem Sex is a big thing in this season. That's really, really, and also people. What this one season has tried to do is not only look at because the first season was really about me and Adam, the boxer, and this season is looking at some of the other characters we met in season 1 and exploring their characters. So the doctor and his dealing with the fact that he lived through the AIDS crisis, and then my neighbour, who is a sister of perpetual indulgence, and looking at how the fact that he's ignored the fact that HIV is a thing for so long. There's also a drag queen in this one, and then a new character who is who's a DJ in the club I work in. You know, it's looking at the community in a much more in-depth way, this one, which is great, and I can't wait for that to go further. Hopefully, and are they coming out every week then, or every fortnight? So every 2 weeks. Not this Wednesday, but next, or whenever this comes out. I don't know what we.
Whenever I get around to editing, I don't have a set schedule. Do I feel like doing this today? No, it'll wait. But okay. What do you have planned next?
Okay, so I'm about to do a feature film, which is fun.
And are you playing a devious homosexual in this feature film?
No, amazingly. I'm just kind of reversing it. I'm playing a straight man, kind of like a dickhead rugby-playing straight man who's kind of playing all the girls.
Really?
Which is hilarious.
Hope you can do it convincingly. I gotta see that. I mean, and then see like,
it used to be, when I was a straight man, before I came out, I used to get cast as that a lot. So,
really?
So I'm hoping that I can kind of tap back into my straight man credentials
what's the premise of the film? Or
it's a dark comedy about this girl who works in a convenience store, and she's kind of obsessed with my character, but my character's getting married, and then I have sex with her before the marriage, just kind of like, so I won't have sex with her. And then she ends up killing everyone by accident.
Yeah, that's very funny. Haha, everyone dies. Yeah.
No, but it is hilarious. Like, my boyfriend and I sat here and we were like reading it, and when we were reading the script only, we laughed out loud about like 5 or 6 times. So it is really funny. So I'm hoping that's gonna be really, really good.
And you're starting maybe some sort of either award or ranking program to examine British media.
Yeah,
Tell us about that.
I kind of talk about, it's kind of like gay Rotten Tomatoes or gay IMDb or queer IMDb is the thing. So it's a database that I'm establishing called Queer Ticks, and that is it's aimed at assessing how well films, shows, TV, whatever, represents community. And so I know that the GLAAD Awards which just happened, honour those things, and they also do a report which shows how we are being represented. But we wanted to look deeper, one, hopefully to have a more UK-focused one, but also look deeper at what good representation looks like. Like, if you've got queer characters, but they always die, or they always have the shit job, or they always, there's always a negative storyline for the gay character, then what story is that telling to the people that are watching it?
How will you define negative?
So that's the thing. So
because if you have, just to throw this back at you a little bit, what if you have a homeless gay man who's sleeping with people to keep a roof over his head?
Yes, totally.
I could certainly perceive that without having had this conversation. I would be like, "Ooh, that's negative," or "What a stereotype."
Yeah.
So how
so that is obviously important, is to look at what is constructive and what is not, and that's what we're doing at the moment. Is I'm assembling a group of people who are going to sit on the panel of Queer Ticks, who are going to examine exactly that and going to talk about what the parameters for what fair representation should be. It depends, I think, also in relation to other things. If, for example, on Netflix, if the question is, does Netflix have good, fair representation of LGBTQ people, it will be, okay, if all the characters on there, all the programs that they have that's happening to, then it's an issue. If there is a selection of characters that's happening to, then it's not so much an issue. It's definitely not an issue. It's actually important that those storylines are told. So I think that will be one of the questions that the panel will be discussing when they meet, which is...
that sounds like a tricky one. That's very context-dependent.
It is hard, which is why I wanted to assemble as kind of diverse a group of people to sit on the panel as possible, and that's looking good at the moment.
And were there any other projects coming up?
I mean, it's quite a lot, to be honest. I also design board games, and so I've got some kind of board game stuff, which is kind of
board game, all right.
Yeah, so that's coming up. So that's
Chem Sex Monopoly? Oh!
Yeah!
Oh, you landed on gonorrhea. Go to jail. Got herpes, you crapped out.
Yeah.
Do not collect $200.
Yeah.
Well, Denholm, thank you so much for appearing on my podcast today.
You're welcome.
We're all going to be tuning in to The Grass is Always Grindr, and it's on YouTube. Is it anywhere else, or is it mainly YouTube?
It's all YouTube, yeah. And just search Grass is Always Grindr and it comes up.
And thank you for sharing your insights and everything you've gone through and what you're doing to kind of promote community, particularly amongst men who have sex with men. So thank you so much, and we'll see you guys soon. Oh, and please don't forget, like and subscribe. I know it's annoying, but it's how we make things work here since everything's free. Thank you guys so much. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.